everybody's hand. So if we shove, we have to have a hand that has a decent expectation to win against that range. And like a weak ace, consider it ace 2 to ace 6, ace 7. And then there's the pocket pairs, you know, 2s all the way up to probably 10s. I think 10s are usually going to get raised. So probably 2s through 9s. So we just need to find a pocket pair that's decent against that range. So like 6s would be ahead of half that range, and we're also ahead of most of those ragged aces as well. Although ace 8 and ace 9 are also in there, they would probably limp too. Ace 10 might limp if it was a weaker player. Ace jack has a tendency to raise, so they're probably not going to be in the range that we're going up against here. So yeah, here I would probably just go ahead and raise 6s, or shove 6s. 3s, it's probably better to just go ahead and check, because then I can actually try and draw to a set. But if I shove here and I get called by 5s, it's just a big pain in the butt. If I shove here and I get called by ace 5, it's a big pain in the butt. And I know it would be terrible for people to make those calls, but that happens. Like I see people call with 2s here all in, and that just doesn't really make any sense, but people do it. So I shove, and I get called, and he has 3s. So yeah, this is a reason as to why I would want to have 6s or better, is to just in case this happens. Like he could have had 4s, and then it's just an embarrassing hand. And we go ahead and split. Calling in the small blind is a bad practice. In tournaments, rather. In cash games, it's completely different. But in tournament play, position is so necessary. It's the most necessary thing. It's more important than your actual hand. So your hand has to be basically the nuts to overcome the fact that you're in the small blind. So just go ahead and fold here. The odds of hitting 2 pair is just so low, it's just not worth it to try and do that. Maybe if we're all like 200 big blinds deep or something, we can go ahead and play that hand. Yeah, so we got a big raise from under the gun here, so we'll just go ahead and fold. Okay, so the antes have now started. So now we can go into adjusted big blinds. Pot size being 560, adjusted big blind is somewhere around 350. So that puts me at around 7 to 8 big blinds adjusted. So in theory, I could shove this here. If I thought that my opponents, and see, I probably didn't see that guy sitting out, just because Full Tilt software does not tell you when somebody is sitting out, and that's an unfortunate circumstance. But I see a guy on the button who has a ton of chips, and a guy in the small blind who has a pretty decent stack, and I can't really tell the big blind stack because it says he's sitting out. But there's a good chance he also had a decent stack. If everyone was closer to my stack size, I'm more willing to shove this because they can't call me wide. They have to call me with the top of their range because they're fearing being knocked out or losing like all their chips as well. These people can call me just wide if they want to. They can call me with ace 8 if they feel like I'm shoving wide. A tight, short stack can't do that. So it's probably better to just fold here until the stack sizes are a little bit better for me to shove. Bad hand. Oh, there we go. Get some ace king under the gun. Pot size is 560, so as far as my M is concerned, which is total pot size, I've only got 5M. Usually when you're like 7 to 8M or so, and you've got a hand that you're willing to raise, you should just go ahead and shove it, because your hand's so small that it's just not, you don't have enough chips to raise and see a flop and miss and fold on some extenuating circumstance. Can't afford it, so just get it in there. Bad hand, go ahead and fold. Get a raise, fold. Queen 8 suited, a raise. Toss it away. And see, this Queen 8 suited, like, maybe I could shove if it was folded to me, but I was not given that option. And here again, if this was folded to me, I'm certainly going to shove it, so I'm getting a raise in front of me, I can't do that. And sometimes that'll happen to you. Like you're getting the hands that you want to shove, but you just can't shove them because someone in front of you is being a little too aggressive. So you have to be willing to play the shorter stack, like I am. Okay, ace-4 is a decent hand to shove with if you're on the button and you're short. Anywhere else it's not really that good, because it's not ahead of anything that's going to call it, ever. It's not even coin flipping against things that are going to call it. At least slightly bigger aces are going to be coin flipping against lower pocket pairs. Usually, I might be coin flipping against like the king-queen, the king-jack suited type of range as well. But that's really a lesser portion of the range than there are just aces that are going to call and pairs that are going to call. So weak aces are just not that good. If they're suited, they're a little better. Actually, if they're suited, they're a lot better, because you get a way better chance to actually win the pot. It adds so much percentage to winning the hand. It turns a 65-35 into a 60-40, and all of a sudden now we're looking at close to a coin flip. But ace-4 is just not good enough to play, so we'll go ahead and toss it. Get queen-jack. Again, if this was suited, probably going to go ahead and shove it, because we're getting pretty small here. We're sitting at like 6.5 adjusted big blinds or so. I wouldn't even have that much of a problem with shoving this one in particular right now, because of the fact that there's quite a few stacks on this table that can't really call lightly. Like there's only 4 out of the 8 people behind us that can call lightly. But I would recommend usually folding this one unless we're a little smaller, maybe at like 2,000 chips or something, after we've waited for another round. Can't do anything here. Okay, so I get a big raise from a somewhat shorty. I mean, he's a decent sized stack, but he's somewhat shorty compared to the guy on the button. I mean, on the big blind. Usually when somebody's doing this, they have a hand they want to protect, whatever that means, that they're not going to fold it to a shove. So then I have to start thinking about, stop and goes, because that's really my only other option if I don't shove here. And a stop and go has such a problem because of the huge stack in the big blind. If I call, the big stack might call too. And if the big stack calls, then I'm stop and going into 2 people instead of just 1. So if I was on the big blind here and I see this raise, I'm probably just going to call and then shove, because I don't have any fold equity. But the hand that I'm probably going to be going up against, like I was saying, is a hand that is probably going to want to protect against the big stack by raising it to 900 instead of something else. That means that he might have a hand that has me dominated, like an ace-queen or an ace-king. He also probably has a pair or something. It just doesn't really set up that well to actually play this hand. So, like, if I was at like 14,000 or 13,000 chips, then I can go ahead and get it in, because then I'm just so short I don't really have fold equity. But as long as I've got 6 real big blinds, like I have, actually I have 7 real big blinds, I've still got some decent fold equity. So I can maybe find a steal in late position or something. So I'll go ahead and toss it here. And don't have a good hand here, so go ahead and fold. Not a good hand. Okay. Let's see what we got here. If this is suited, I'm probably going to be shoving it, because I like the 2 short guys. They can't call without losing the tournament, potentially.